Everyone. Let's do a quick roll call. Here we go. Kevin Thusius.
I am here.
Steve Douglas.
Present.
John Brandt.
Yep, here.
Andy Hartman, not present yet. And I am here as chair. So the gang's all here. Plus we've got Michael Pomykowski and our honorary our sustainability committee member. So glad you're here, Michael. Brian, is there anybody else that I haven't recognized that's in the Zoom room, or anybody that we're expecting?
Nope, you got them all.
Okay, terrific. And here's the plan for today for our conversation. Again, I'm going to try to wrap us up and be out of here by about 7:15 tonight. So here we go. We will discuss and possibly approve our February 23rd. Is that right? Yep, 23rd Sustainability Committee meeting minutes. So just 2 weeks ago. Then we will move into discussion of our sustainability plan, continued implementation. Would you mind, Brian, just scrolling down a little bit to bring up the bottom portion of the agenda? Great. We will talk about the energy audit resolution and the conversation on the village board meeting last week. We'll talk about a possible opportunity to bring in Focus on Energy to give a presentation in Cross Plains, which is in keeping with our sustainability plan. And we'll do a review of some of the remaining items. I'm going to put a cap on that conversation tonight. So we'll spend probably about maybe up to half an hour just kind of ticking through and talking about the sustainability plan and trying to move some things forward. And then we'll move on to NOMO May, and we'll talk about some of that, the implementation and what we'd like to move forward to the village board. Hopefully Andy will be joining us by then, because I know that he was working on a draft ordinance or resolution around that as of this morning. And then I wanted to just spend a little bit of time talking about upcoming changes to Sustainability Committee. I'm not clear on when the timing is of when we become a standing committee. And that means I'm not sure, when the chairmanship changes. So I'm hoping, Brian, at that point of the conversation, you might be able to help give a little bit of, information on what those changes look like and the timing of them. And then I'm going to wrap us up wherever we are, right around 7:15. We'll figure out the next steps and adjourn. That's the plan for today's call. Is there anything that's not on the agenda that you want to make sure we have time to talk about today? Okay, cool. Then I'm going to move us forward, and we still have nobody else on, so I'm guessing no need for public comment. I'm going to move us on to general business, and the first is committee member report outs and updates. Is there anything that folks have a report out for, an update that's not currently on the agenda?
The only thing I have, and I copied everybody that was presently on sustainability on that, is that I have been charged via the Lions to clean up Xander Park and Bear Park prior to geez, I totally forgot the name of it. I've only lived here for 25
Trout
years.
Day.
Trout
Days.
Days.
Thank you. And I copied you guys in, really only in the hope that maybe we can get something out on the village website as far as when the cleanup is going to be.
Great. Thanks, John. John, are you going to have some kind of write-up or something that we could get to Brian or whoever else in the village? That
I can have a write-up to do that. I believe I sent something out to Mike Kelvin because he's going to put it out in the Lions newsletter. I will find what I sent to him and I will send that out.
Okay. All right.
John, send
Thanks,
it to me
John.
too. Yeah, and I'll get it on the website. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on report outs and updates from folks?
Just on that last topic, John, thanks for
sort of reaching out to the community groups and, trying to get, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, sustainability. I'm coming out for it.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's a lot of, and kids in NHS. I think it's
And-
Marty who might have a connection there. And I know kids are looking for those hours too.
Yeah.
So if we have the ability to get them there, I wonder, because having had kids go through that program, is there somebody that signs off on that if someone shows up for an hour of service? How
I
do they do
believe
that?
that's me.
Okay. They must have some form they bring from MHS that says service hours, whatever.
I think that's my understanding of it.
Okay. And if I recall, when my son was involved in Key Club, and these things came up and people were tight, you could potentially get kind of like a wave of kids, which would be fine.
And
right?
if we do, we're just going to do other parks.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking from experience, to have a kid who is behind in his service hours, just put it there. But yeah, thanks for that, John. That'll be nice.
I think it'll be good. I believe they tried to do it last year, and there was no promotion of it at all, from what I can figure out, and nobody showed up. So I'm hoping to do a little bit. This is my first time at it. I'm hoping to do a little bit better. I'm going to try some stuff through Facebook as well. So,
Hey, John, when are you targeting the dates for the?
it is Saturday the 29th, and it's at 10 o'clock. And we're meeting I'm having everybody meet in the parking lot that's adjacent to like the Vessel Cafe and the pharmacy and stuff like that.
So that April 29th?
April 29th.
Okay.
I'm very excited. I'm picking up dog poop in Xander Park on my 63rd birthday.
Oh,
John, that's terrible.
Happy retirement.
Yeah, it's glamorous.
Oh man. Okay.
There was no better day to do it.
Yeah.
John, if you can give me that info, just a reminder email with the meeting details and stuff. I'm putting together a newsletter, little summary to send out for the next month's Cross Plains newsletter to the residents, so I can try to put a little segment in there reminding them or giving them the heads up on that coming, and get your contact information and stuff out if you want to reach out to sign up or whatever.
That'll be great. I will get that out to you.
Perfect.
Cool. Any other report outs and updates or updates from the committee? Anything that's not for something that's not currently on the agenda? All right. I'm going to move us on then to discussion and possible approval of the February 23rd Sustainability Committee meeting minutes. Have folks had the chance to review those? And if so, be happy to take a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
yes, I've read them and moved to approve. Steve.
Okay,
I
thanks,
will
Steve.
second that.
Okay, thanks, John. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye. Or
Aye.
thumbs up, or somehow.
Well, I'm doing
Great.
thumbs up too, but you can't see it.
Some indication of affirmation. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thanks so much for preparing those, Brian. Really appreciate it. Next up, we are going to talk about sustainability plan implementation. I guess the first thing that I'd like to do is just kind of review what happened. So I think we are all there except maybe you, Kevin, for the village board meeting that just took place last Monday, in which the village board reviewed our energy audit resolution. It was unanimously approved, but it had some conversation that was interesting about the kind of the requirements to whether there was, whether the village was going to be required to prioritize energy efficiency over all else. And so, I just wanted to like give a little bit of space for us to talk about that, the conversation of the village board, and see if folks had anything that they wanted to, any reflections or anything they want to share about that. And then we can talk a little bit about how implementation will work, because there's a piece of that resolution that said that we'll create a resiliency plan. So first, I just kind of wanted to see if folks had questions or thoughts about the village board decision and discussion last Monday.
No, having sat through it, having discussed it immensely, the whole conversation that surrounded it, and I discussed this with many, many people ad nauseum for 2 days, and I am going to be done talking about my thoughts on that meeting and the discussion surrounding that.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I will say that it felt a little, I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'll say for me personally, it felt a little demoralizing that that this resolution was a watered down version of a stronger resolution that was focused on making a commitment around clean energy. And it didn't seem like that was gonna get through the village board, and so it was watered down. And it's basically, I'm happy that we did it, but really this is a resolution that prioritizes energy efficiency and doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. And so I'm hoping that in the future we can build on this and create something that's a little more visionary and a little more effective, and that this will just be a starting point. So but I was really hoping that this would be an easy sell, and it was a learning moment for me that that we're not all in the same place when it comes to effective action on climate change. So that's where I'm at, and I'm hoping we can build from here. John, I know you said you're not going to say anything else.
Well, since you're one of the people I talked to, yes, I agree with everything that you said. I actually honestly wondered why they voted to have us become a permanent committee. If after that meeting, I was just confused by so much. Yeah, I agree. A watered down version that was still controversial.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, give us some wisdom. I'm sure you're gonna tell us.
Well, it sounds like I missed a fun discussion. That's for sure. Maybe I should go back and listen. Yeah, I can somebody, you've sort of been dancing around it, but what was the pushback, and other than measurables maybe?
Yeah. The pushback was that I think we used the word shall or
yeah, that was the word I thought we might
will.
get in trouble with.
Yeah, and will. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recall those,
and there was not a sense, at least from a couple of board members, that they were 100% confident that that's what we should commit to.
Yeah. Well, commitment's hard. And the other thing is, and I think we all want the same thing here, but I think the words of wisdom is that it's a board that is elected and changes every year. And it's hard to make commitments, while you're there. and it's harder to make commitments while, for something that's going to happen maybe when you're not there. And so I guess I'm, seeing it from the board side, I understand that. And I guess, but my only hope was that maybe the board would still, and it sounds like maybe they did, really support the underlying premise. And even if it's softer and striving instead of shall, I think if you got to educate the board now, do it in another year, and then it becomes just mainstream. I think that's maybe the better path. And here's a plan, we're going to do it, let's go. Is just that we start ticking off all these boxes anyhow, and not things that are when we can make decisions on a day-to-day or short-term process, or short-term goals done or actions done. I think that's really where we may strive for success. And just, I guess what I'm saying is, F it. We can still do all the things we want to do, without, the wills and shalls in the resolution.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. And I think, I think it's a testament to the fact that we're in a democracy, and that work takes a long time. Not everybody's on the same page, and there's a lot of work to be done, and progress is always slower than you want it to be. So I'm feeling that.
Yeah, and I'll finish up by saying the board sees issues all the time. I'm on the plan commission, and we're talking about this real big water issue, and and then we're talking about numbers in the millions all the time, and we want to do things. So we want to build a building, of course, and there's millions there, and just there are a lot of big chunks that the board has to deal with right now. And I think that maybe they look at this and they're afraid that this is a big chunk too.
That's helpful, Kevin, and that's part of what I'm hoping that I can talk with Jay about is, what are some of the underlying concerns that we're not seeing on the sustainability committee, but if we have those in mind, we might be able to steer our work a little more efficiently.
I think that is a well-framed question.
Yeah. How about others? Anybody else want to reflect, comment on the resolution or the conversation last week?
Hey, Melissa, I just wanted to add, I do think it's very important that the committee continue to push forward these types of initiatives and keep the sustainability committee in the forefront of discussion on the board level. I just think it's important. I think it's building up a level of familiarity, and perhaps a level of trust. One of the things I think that this particular resolution does, and open the door to, was the meeting that I had today with the gentleman from Focus on Energy. We did go through a number of village buildings to sort of have him start doing his initial assessment of some of the areas that we could possibly improve efficiencies, and have some energy improvement gains. So he is going to be putting together a somewhat of a proposal to bring back to me. I said if he could get that to me by the end of this month, my goal was to have that before the committee again next month. So you could take a look at that, and then we can bring that back to the village board in a future village board meeting to say, look, we did one of the very first things that our resolution that you just supported recommended. Here are some recommendations from that very individual about some ways that we can improve and enhance efficiencies, and maybe even encourage some investment for future cost savings down the road. And I think the more we continue to have the committee bring these issues forward, I think you'll start to see, while this committee really can benefit the village, and it might be looked at as dollars and cents right now and not so much long-term green, global energy usage and the environment as a whole. But even if it's just dollars and cents initially, I think that's still progress.
Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's a good perspective.
Anything else from folks? Okay. All right. Well, forward. We'll keep keeping on. Sometimes progress is slow and painful, but it's the only way forward. So thanks, everybody. Let's talk maybe a little bit. Actually, Brian, keep it there. Keep it there. Go down to the resolution. I wanted to highlight, I want to give folks a chance to kind of reread this, because what the village committed to last week was to undergo an energy audit. I actually, Brian, wasn't the final resolution, the approved one, that it would be an energy assessment, right? But basically what we've already done, or did we leave it as energy audit?
No, I believe we modified the motion to assessment, if I remember.
Okay. That's what, okay, cool. So, and that sounds like that forward motion that's already moving forward. The other pieces, I think are fairly in keeping with what is in our sustainability plan, prioritizing, community-based or local development of renewable energy. And that is really the distinction there is like, what we're not trying to do is go after like renewable energy credits, but actually help build new clean energy in the community, and Dane County and surrounding counties. The second, or the third piece, is around collaboration with other organizations or other municipalities to facilitate, I'm not really sure, all energy measures. I was understanding that to be just enhanced collaboration with local municipalities on clean energy, but as I see that now, I'm not totally sure. So let's skip that one and come back. The next one is around really local scale, and then this is again as opposed to like renewable energy credits, or building out big, maybe big transmission lines or supporting big transmission lines, but really focusing on local renewable energy, and to the extent that we can, and energy storage at public facilities. And then this last one is the one that we don't really have anything in our sustainability plan on, so I just want to bookmark this for a future conversation around developing a resiliency plan. So I think that we need to kind of add this into the queue of things to be working on, and recognizing that at least I don't have experience working on a resiliency plan. I don't know, is there anybody who's seen one of these and has experience with that? Okay.
No, I think it's great that we assign things to our things that we don't really truly understand yet.
Here being the idea that like, lots of communities are tossing around the idea of increased resiliency to climate events. Flooding is a great example here in the Midwest. And so I don't have an example, but conceptually I understand the idea is that we want to be really forward thinking about infrastructure and improvements that we make in the community to make us more climate resilient. And I think, again, here Cross Plains in the Midwest, that's really going to be around flooding, and also making the community more resilient. So there are these, for example, the federal government is, there's lots of grant programs right now. One of them is around creating resiliency hubs. And so there are churches, there are congregations that are getting grants from the federal government to become resiliency hubs. And these are places where people can go if there's, say, out west, they have, this is for fires, for wildfires. So people can go to these resiliency hubs, are often in churches or other like community gathering buildings, and they'll have air filtration, they'll have solar connected to storage, battery storage, so that people can have refrigerators for their medicines. They can have a way to charge their cell phones. So while I haven't seen an example from a community, there are lots of, this is a hot topic and I think a really good idea for us to do. I just haven't seen an example from a municipality about how to do it, which is exciting. It's a new challenge for us.
Yeah, I'm looking online right now, and there's the U.S. Climate Resiliency Toolkit that the government has out there. There's the Health and Human Services.gov has community resilience preparedness. There's the Federal Emergency Management Planning for Resilient Communities fact sheet. So there are resources out there. There's more. I don't even know what some of these organizations are.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some cities out there that already have one. I don't know where Tier Guard is, but Tier Guard has one. So
yeah. So let's, I want to bookmark this conversation, and I think that it's not this month. It might not be next month, but sometime in the next few months, we need to get this on the agenda to really start drilling down into how, who and how we'll start to create a resiliency plan. And that, I think, really, my opinion is that it should involve lots of community members. And so, getting much like when we created our sustainability plan, it would be really great to bring in community members, even, hopefully much more robustly than we did when we created the sustainability plan. But, bringing in community members to help us create that plan. So let me make a note that maybe we put it on, we're in March, maybe we put it on the April agenda to start talking about what the process is to create it, and keep it on the agenda for a while. Okay. With that, Brian, would you mind scrolling back up, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you. All right. That's all that I was thinking we would cover for the implementation of the energy audit resolution. But was there anything else on that folks wanted to lift up, reflect on? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to move us along then. This next item is an opportunity that we could have, and I wanted to pitch it to the Sustainability Committee to see if it has legs. In the process of trying to play matchmaker with Brian and the Village of Cross Plains and Focus on Energy, I had a conversation with the community outreach person, I don't remember his name, Brady, at Focus on Energy. And his whole job is to work with municipalities, to work with communities to try to increase participation on Focus on Energy. And he offered to come into Cross Plains. He's actually in Madison, so he's pretty close. He offered to come to Cross Plains and do a presentation on Focus on Energy programs that would be aimed at, residential and commercial. And just kind of tick through what are the offerings and how can people access some of those programs. Considering that this is one of our sustainability plan goals, it's number 9 on our sustainability plan, I wanted to just kind of see what folks thought about that and if anybody had ideas about how we could make the most of it. Okay, bye, Michael. Thanks. Any strong feelings?
Sorry, Melissa, I think I must have glitched out there. I kind of lost some audio there for a second. Could you just recap that? Sorry.
Yeah.
I did too.
So yeah, okay. So I said that I had a conversation with Brady, whose last name I'm forgetting. from Focus on Energy, but his role is kind of a community liaison with Focus on Energy. And he's offered to do a presentation for Cross Plains. You know, he suggested like at the library, he could do a presentation on Focus on Energy programs, residential, commercial programs, and give a presentation to people so that they understand what the programs are and how to access Focus on Energy rebates. And he could even talk a little bit about maybe some of the federal programs and how they're coming down, and you know, people might how people might benefit from that. So does that seem like something worth us trying to do, is host a Focus on Energy information program, maybe at the library?
I would say absolutely. That's easy. He's willing to do it. He's probably got some, you know, a bunch of resources ready to go. And it sounds like it's accessible, like people could just show up and understand it. It's not like, oh, you know, some big complicated thing. So it sounds practical and something we should definitely be promoting.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't have the plan in front of us, but I'm sure this checks a couple of boxes in that in our current plan. So absolutely, and we could promote it, and you hopefully get a decent crowd there.
Cool. Okay, so it's it's actually line 9. It's number 9 of our 25 priorities is promoting Focus on Energy programs. So cool. So I'm going to reach out to Brady, and he can talk about residential, commercial, and the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, and how those funds how people might be able to take like a tax benefit next year by using some of these programs. And I will find out what dates work for him. And then I'm thinking the library makes the most sense. Is there a better location to host a conversation like that?
Library.
Yeah,
Library.
through the library, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, I will make that happen. Stay tuned for more information. And in terms of setting a date, I'm going to check with Brady, but is there anybody who's like, I definitely want to come, please try to work it into my schedule, or there's no way I'm going to that, so it doesn't matter? Just trying to get a sense of who else I should make sure that it works for in terms of schedule. Or do you want me to just plan it? And if you can make it, you can make it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I might say weeknight
Perfect.
versus weekend. Weeknight versus weekend.
What's your preference, Kevin?
I would say weeknight first.
Weeknight is your preference?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think weekends people are so busy that it's just hard to get people there. So
okay. All right. Steve, John?
Yep, agree. Weekend, or I'm sorry, weeknight.
Weeknight. Okay. All right. That's really good to know. I will see what works for Brady. That's what I got on that presentation. And the cool thing is that Kevin, I know that you had done some research on Focus on Energy programs to put on our website. So when Brady's there, we can we'll have a better sense of what we might want to promote through his presentation, and then refine what's on our website to kind of parallel what he's talking about.
great.
All right, folks, anything else on that? Here's what I'm hoping to do before we go to No Mo May. Brian, do I have the ability to share my screen right now?
You should. I'm trying to remember how to get that through. Give me a sec here.
Okay.
Under participants, I don't see her as currently being able to host, but you could right click on her and say make her co-host.
And you may need to stop sharing also, Brian.
Okay.
What I'm hoping to do here is just screen share our sustainability plan, the Excel spreadsheet, so we can kind of spend a few minutes ticking through and see if there's anything that we can move a little further down the field.
All right, Melissa, you're co-host now, so I think you should be able to.
The only thing is, if you can stop sharing, Brian, then I'll be able to show my screen. And I'm going to go off camera for a second because sometimes it freezes. So let's see. Okay, it should be loading. Usually takes a second or so. You guys still seeing a blank screen or something that says my screen is loading?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I will not have infinite patience with this. If it's still, we'll give this another 20
It's up.
seconds or so.
There it is.
Perfect. All right, great. Okay. I am just hoping we can kind of wing through this and see if there's anything that we can continue to push on. And I was taking a look at this recently, and I'd say we've made pretty good progress, or as far as we can get on some of these things, and I'm not sure where else they can go. So I'm just gonna couple things that I wanted to draw out. So on row 7, this is where, you know, we said as part of our plan we wanted to establish a goal to meet 100% of village operation energy needs with renewable energy by 2035. This is the genesis of our original clean energy resolution, and that is what became basically the energy audit resolution. So I just wanted to, you know, we're still trying to make progress on this one. It's a big piece of our greenhouse gas emissions. So I will kind of steady as it goes, keep trying to push through on this one. And we just talked tonight about row 9, about how to promote focus on energy programs to village residents. We talked about bringing focus on energy community liaison to Cross Plains. So I will work on that. But we've got some of these here that we have yet to really get, get inroads into. So I wanted to, and obviously there's a bunch that I didn't talk about so far, but at least we've had some discussion on many of those. But I'm wondering about some of these, like digging into the village's comprehensive plan to determine areas of concern and improvement related to sustainability, and flagging that if we don't make a concerted effort and get really intentional about digging into these, this is something that we'll never get to. So this is probably the comprehensive plan and reviewing the zoning and building codes. We identified this in the sustainability plan, and this is going to take just a good bit of grunt work, really, to take a look at these ordinances and see if there's anything that we can do to improve, around sustainability there. I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any thoughts about how we might make progress on those 2 rows.
Yeah, fun. The comp plan is actually not too bad, and I think that's something that I having read it or parts of it way too many times over the years, I would be willing to start to dig into that and see where I go.
Awesome.
I would like some reminders, some gentle badgering, whatever you want to call it, on that. I am on the plan commission, so looking down to 15, I will continue to keep an eye open for opportunities with the plan commission, as it says in 15. However, the zoning and building codes, that is something that I'm not going to jump into, and unfortunately, I think some of that is maybe just as they come up, as new codes are being investigated and looked at, might be the time to address them. Or frankly, I feel like as we may have like a subdivision or something or development happening, and a code might come up that may be the time. So ideal situation is you've changed all the codes, the development comes up, and you're like, okay, they have to meet these codes. But reality, I think, is going to be the other way around, where developments come up and we see an issue with the code, and we maybe have to make that change at that time. So it's going to be wonky, and I think Brian's going to have to be heavily involved with that too, because he's the, essentially the manager of the codes. Sorry, Brian.
And it's like thousands of pages long, right?
Well, yeah, hundreds probably, or a couple, probably. I don't know, what is it, Brian?
It's hundreds. I don't know the exact count, but yeah, it's a lot. Where the comp plan is, much more readable and functional. But even then, we've had times, Brian, in the recent history too, where we thought our code said one thing, and when we dug deep into it, it was another thing. So that's gonna be pretty tough. I feel like. Yeah.
It may be, or may just be one subset of the codes. And then they're interrelated, right? They're connected. So if you change one, you got to change the two that tier off of that.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to put my name on that list.
Yeah, fair.
But I will keep an eye out for it as I'm working through the plan commission.
I had done a little bit of research on some of our surrounding communities and just some of the things that they were doing. I know Middleton had some green requirements that they added, like from a sustainability side of things, for new businesses that were wanting to relocate into their community, and making requirements as part of the building process and stuff. I don't know specifically how involved and what it takes to get that to become part of your building code requirements for new businesses and things. I think residential, there's a lot of sticking points related to the state requirements for standards, much like what we were finding when we were talking about some of the focus on energy or Energy Star appliances, and whether or not those could be mandated for inclusion. So I think a lot of that comes back to the way the state code is written and whether or not you can enforce things. But I did find some information from Middleton, and I can see if I can find that and forward that on to you, just as far as how they approach some of their new development with businesses and taking a sustainable angle to that.
That'd be really helpful, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Going back to the researching and reviewing zoning and building codes, I wonder if it could also be very specific, topically. And I think maybe you were saying this, Kevin, maybe not so much as things come up, but I was in a presentation last week with a group that was based in Kansas City, and they were doing some work in their community on decriminalizing walking and biking in Kansas City. And they spent some time they were researching their municipal codes, and of course, just like us, hundreds, maybe thousands, who knows, but hundreds, lots and lots of pages, and nobody has time to actually go through and read it. So when they were looking to do work around decriminalizing walking and biking, what that meant is they were trying to find laws that made it more difficult for people to use active transportation. And so they selected some keywords to do a search of the municipal code, and using those key terms, and they had something like a dozen key terms that they were searching for, that allowed them to find 3 laws, or several, but they zeroed in on 3 laws that they decided to try to overturn in Kansas City. One was prohibiting jaywalking. One was a law on dirty wheels. So if, you know, a bike or a wheelchair or something had dirty wheels, they could be prohibited from being on on public sidewalks. And then another one was the bike inspection law. So police officers were able to at any point decide, you know, they could inspect somebody's bike and have somebody get off of their bike for an inspection. And so I was thinking about the process that they used to do that and just, you know, coming up with a very specific body of work that somebody wanted to dive into and then using a few key search terms. That seems like that would help make that process a little more bite-sized, but also it still would be a good chunk of time. Well, any other ideas on row 13? Hearing none, I'm going to move us on because, and I just want to see if there's if anybody has any thoughts on any of we have, you know, 25, we came up with 25 priorities for Cross Plains. Any other ideas on how we might move any of these forward? And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to this spreadsheet that we've got. I'm going to stop sharing. Drop a link so you can take a look. But we want to make sure that we're continuing to move those forward. So if you have thoughts on how to move those forward, take a look, let me know, and let's continue to talk about it next month.
Melissa, the color code in there, those are the ones in process that turn tan. Is that right? We've got some movement on that.
What the heck was that? I don't remember, Steve.
Because I was thinking it would be nice at a glance if we had a, you know, a green, yellow, red system of some sort, like
I think with the color code, and I agree, that would be really smart. We should do that. The color coding is just in chunks of 5, and it's creating kind of contrast to say this is a chunk of 5, this is a chunk of 5. Because when we put it together, you know, last year when we were starting to move through implementation, we thought it would be easier if we talked about 5 at a time. And we found that sometimes we can talk about several, and sometimes we have to go into the weeds on one. So turns out that color coding does not really serve us. I love the idea of kind of a red, yellow, green coding though. It's good. Anybody move to try to update the color coding?
Sounds like a good
Got
plan.
it.
Oh, you're looking for a color coder.
Looking for a color coder.
I'll give it a try.
All right.
Yay.
You win. Thanks, Steve.
No good idea goes unpunished.
That's what we like to say on the committee.
And so,
the
for
competent shall be
example,
punished.
yeah, if for example, what's one that we've done? The med Dropbox thing. That's is that a green?
That's a yep. I'd give that a green.
That means complete, and yellow means in process, and red
Yeah.
not started. Or
I guess red would either be not started or in danger of not moving forward.
Okay.
That's how I would interpret it.
And so the energy audit / goals for carbon usage that was pared down, that's got a yellow status, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I could make a stab at it, and then we actually should make an agenda item to confirm that I got it right.
That's perfect. And that'll be a great prompt for the conversation then, Steve, to be like, okay, well, here are these ones that we still haven't figured out how to move forward. That'd be really helpful. Thanks. Okay. All right.
Melissa, before we move on,
yep, Kevin.
Brian,
Yes.
do you have hard copies of the comp plans at the office printed?
That I don't believe we do. Or if we do, I'm not familiar with where they're at right now. I do have the online, obviously.
Yeah, okay. I was just looking for a hard copy. I think I did too good of a job cleaning my office up here recently. So it's not where it's supposed to be. So
okay.
All right, thanks.
I can print a new one if need be for you.
I'll look around. I might hit you up. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. So we've got our marching orders. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about No Mow May. Steve, I know you sent something around this afternoon or today, and I haven't had a chance to look at it. Can you give us the scoop?
Yes. So, yeah, and sorry that did not come out earlier. I got fooled by the meeting just 2 weeks ago, thinking I had more time for this. But I particularly at the end of last season, something that caught my eye. I know we wanted to do a sort of a post-mortem, and we wanted to. Well, we're always in continuous improvement mode, right? If we learn new things, hear new things, we want to look at those and be guided by science and let the data tell us where to go. So I remember seeing an article about Madison's decision not to adopt no mow but to adapt a version of that called low mow. And I put the link to that in there, and it's actually very good in that it's talks a little bit about the huge wave that these communities have seen of people wanting to do this program, but then it also has the counterpoint of providing some info from some sort of contrasting sources. So the reason that Madison did not go with a full no mow is they had a presentation to their sustainability committee, and one of the references or the quotes was from a turf grass specialist from UW Extension. He's a professor in plant pathology, Paul Koch, who essentially, I think the article said he's, just been getting inundated by people having questions about this. His point was, and I just highlighted a few things from the article in there, the sort of the downsides of this, in that we want to do the right thing for the bees, but some potential downsides are the fact that this is very tough on the grass itself. Letting it grow that high and then cutting it off that dramatically really weakens the plants. He talks about the risk that all that material could potentially go into gutters and clog up the drain system. He talks about the difficulty of just sort of general consumer equipment being able to handle that. So he throws out some very good not objections, but he's just sort of, I think, moderating the message. And then there's a really, really good article that is it's actually very dense. A woman who's a forester published in Biological Sciences, and this is actually from 2018, and they did a study of mowing frequency and effectiveness and impact on sort of the number and variety of bee populations, and it's really, really good, and it's incredibly complicated. But essentially, if you boil it down, in the article that I put in there does boil it down pretty well. Essentially says they notice a sweet spot in that if the grasses got too high, if you let them go 3 weeks, and that ends up the grass is like 8+ inches high, the number of bees actually went down. The 2-week mowing frequency, keeping grass at 5 inches, was where you had the most bees. And what they noticed at 3 weeks was lesser bees, but greater variety of bees. So, there's a lot of variables in this. But it got me thinking in that I think the science is telling us that more is not always better. And I want us as a sustainability committee to be able to make a recommendation, or at least provide education, to people who want to do it, of what they're getting into and what really may be the effects. And so, again, I have not been able to dig too deeply into that article from the forester person, but it was very compelling. And so that's why I sent those along, hoping people would have a chance to look at that and see what you guys thought of the data, how you interpreted it, because there's a fair amount in that wrapped up in all that. So
Thanks, Steve.
Mhm.
Has anybody had the chance to take a look at that? Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I did not have a chance to read through it. But I appreciate your condensing it down for us, Steve.
Mm.
Yeah, I kind of come from any participation is good participation. Um, you know, my yard does not grow as fast as Steve's does because I've never been good at taking care of it. So I'd be lucky if I ever got grass. I could wait all summer long and my grass wouldn't be 8 inches tall. Um, so it's easy for me to participate the whole time and probably not hit, the sweet spot, that they're discussing. But like I said, I think, awareness and participation, whether it's for 2 weeks and then you cut it down a little and then you go 2 weeks more, I think that's all good.
Mm.
Yep,
I and
I agree, John. That maybe, I think it's sort of a moderated approach. I mean, everybody was all gung ho on this, and I think we still can be gung ho, but I definitely want to be able to respond to data if we have some.
it seems to me like we can both be responsive to data and be in keeping with, what we heard from folks last year is even among sustainability committee members, not everybody participated or not everybody could, wait the whole month. And so I would say let's not create a situation in which it looks like even on the sustainability committee that if we can't keep up with that, I don't want to create a situation in Cross Plains where it looks like there's, like conflictual implementation or confusion. So my recommendation is that we pivot to talk about it as low mow May. And that way it covers the people who don't want to mow at all, but it also covers the people who are like, I'd like to participate, but just it doesn't, it's not going to work for me not to mow the whole time. And I think that probably the resolution may not have to change very much because the ordinances or the resolution is simply that we will not enforce the limit, the 6-inch limit or whatever. We won't enforce that for the month of May. So maybe we don't need to change the ordinance, but we just need to change the education component and the way that we're talking about it.
That's great. And, we can put those resources on the website. We have a very good start at the No Mo May sort of the page, and we can just add additional info, and then people can, feel like they can go and look at it, but we don't have to necessarily recommend do it this way versus that way. Hey, here is some new science behind this. I mean, and that could just be a matter of posting some links there. We don't have to endorse it one way or another, because my guess is after all the buzz from last year, there's going to be new data coming out. Somebody is going to be wanting to study this more. And so we could even change our tune by next year. So, let's leave it open for that. I think we should provide what we know, because one of our unspoken missions is to educate the community, and we can at least provide that information.
So Andy is currently working on some draft language to get in front of the village board, and I had hoped that he would be on tonight. So I'm hoping that he'll circulate that. I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure exactly what he was thinking, but when he shares that, let's make sure that that anything that goes to the board is not like a all or nothing. Let's make sure that it can honor low mow May in addition to no mow May, and that's what the village board passes, because I just don't remember exactly what the changes were that he was proposing. But I would recommend that we shift to low mow May as we're talking about it. And that has some consequences in terms of, like I said, I don't know I don't know how much, if at all, it changes the ordinance piece of it, but it probably changes the education component, including, for example, the signs. So we had signs made up last year. And Brian, you looked into the budget piece of that, right? And I think you found that the village, that it was mostly it was covered by, the village covered some, and then it was covered by donations,
Yeah.
right?
I'm pretty sure the numbers escape me. I want to say it was almost all but like $25 to $40 range of like the 500 or something was all covered by donations.
Like people giving money when they picked up a sign.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious from folks, do we think we want to do more signage this year?
I wondered about the existing signs. We were hoping they would be reusable. Andrew's brilliant design, which we still love. What does it do to the spirit of the design if we amended it somehow? Like you had a little, okay, this year I'm going to be a low mow May. So I have a little, I can apply a little sticker or something that says low, you know what I mean? So we could still use the gist of it, but hey, I'm picking this route, and someone else could pick the no mow. Not.
That's a cool idea. Just putting a
because
sticker over
it is going to be, you know what, and have the sticker be almost very obvious, like a little bit of graffiti almost, in that I'm going to have this sign right prominent on Main Street or Park Street, yet I'm going to be mowing my lawn. So someone's going to be like, well, what are you doing? It says no mow, and there you are mowing. And what if I had something on there that said low mow? Maybe someone would stop and say, what's the deal?
I like that. Okay, I know, just because we want to move on. I'm trying to think about what the best next step is.
So
do we want to get more signs printed and then more stickers? John, what's the answer? I'm sure you're going to tell us. What should we do?
No, I'm going to tell you two things. First of all, Andy did send out his proposed resolution.
Okay, cool.
Today, and it is essentially what we did last year, except it's changing the dates. So he has it set up so it's an annual approval. So it's
okay.
And it's really it says it's no mow May, and it says that a couple times through it, but it's saying this is the reason why we do it. And then it's suspension of the mowing, or I call it the lawn care ordinance that the village has. So it would be a very easy thing to change. There's actually no requirement that if you participate, you can't cut your grass. So that would be education on our end, which then brings us to the signs. I almost feel like we should do two things. We should order more signs, because I had people coming to me, saying, I'm participating, but nobody knows it, and it looks like I don't take care of my yard, but there are no signs anymore. So number one, I think we should order more signs, and then we should order stickers. And then you should give people the option. Steve is going to do low mow May. We're going to do no mow May, because we can. And I just think, to me, we're letting people choose the method, and as long as we educate them as to the science, they're probably all they're gonna do what is maybe the most scientific, maybe the most easy. You don't really
Or
know.
maybe what works for their marital situation.
Yes. Again, I'm just going to the participation and awareness is good.
Yeah. So, Brian, with that, so it sounds like we've got a pretty good idea that we want to move this forward. Andy's already got a draft resolution. We would want to get that draft resolution in front of the village board. I am wondering, process question, do we need to pass that resolution out of the sustainability committee, considering that it came from the sustainability committee last year? What's the process here? Do we need to formally approve it? Do we need to make an amendment, John, based on what you said?
Go ahead, John, if you want to speak first here.
No, I don't know.
Okay. The two things I was going to just say before I answer that question, I did get the resolution from Andy today. One of the things that was also mentioned in the resolution that he proposed, even though I didn't have a lot of time to look it over, I do remember he did include a couple of village properties that he wanted to see participation from in the program this year. So that is new. There might also be village board concern related to those, but that remains to be seen. It will go before the board. One of the things that I think we're starting to do now is to have the open policy where a village trustee can bring a topic before the board. So I don't think, to answer your question, it necessarily needs to be voted on and approved on the sustainability committee. I think if you still work on it and amend something, I can include the amended version in the packet and say that it came from Andy.
Okay. How about this? So the next village board meeting is going to be on the 27th, and you would need to get things to the village board by the preceding Monday. Would that be is that right? The 20th?
Yes, I try to put a draft packet of materials out to all the trustees the Monday before, a week before, so they have an opportunity to see the majority of the things that are going to be presented and research those topics. So ideally, to have the finished product in hand to be included in that packet would be more beneficial than modifying, changing, and putting in a modified version the Friday before the meeting on Monday.
So how about this? How about if folks take a closer look at that resolution, and if you want to suggest changes for that, let's take a look at, if you want to suggest changes for that, email the group, because Andy sent that out to all of us. And if Andy doesn't get any feedback, then we're going to move that resolution as he proposed to the village board. And it sounds like it would be pretty consistent. I do know that Andy checked in with Mike Axon about those village properties, and those are two that Mike indicated would work for the village. That wouldn't be additional, work or a problem to include in No Mow May. So he did talk to some village staff about that.
Great.
So here's what I recommend to move us on. We're going to take a look at the resolution that Andy has shared, weigh in via that email thread if you'd like to see any changes, knowing that we would need to confirm any changes with Andy and share those concerns. I would say a week from now, today's the 8th, I would say by the 15th, so that we can get our ducks in a row to make sure that Brian has what he needs. So take a look at that resolution. You've got a week to make any suggestions about what you'd like to see different in that. Otherwise, it'll move forward to the village board during the March meeting. And I also heard agreement that we want to pivot to talking about low mow May, and we want additional signs, and we also want to pursue stickers. Brian, do you still have the contact with the sign company? Is that something you'd be willing to pursue to get another order
I can look. I don't specifically remember. I think the signs got ordered before I even
They
came
did.
on board with the
They
village
did.
last year. But I can find. I think it was with Latitude.
It's Latitude Graphic,
Yeah.
and it's Eric Padgett.
Okay.
Or actually, it's his son now. I think maybe.
Okay.
Zach? No.
I know.
And I guess one question I would have too, if and hopefully your next question was going to be about stickers.
Yep. That's
I'm
right.
curious about a clever design for that. Can we reemploy our artists to say, what would you suggest? How is Andrew Barant doing these days, and is he open for another gig?
Andrew's working full time, but he does side gigs for Tracy and I. And I can talk. I'll talk to him. We have last year's sign, and he still has the graphics for it. So we'll see if he can come up with something for that.
Yeah, if I could
Okay.
reuse my sign, that would be great. But I would love that sort of idea of, this sort of graffiti look of, hey, I've switched my plan here. I'm doing something different.
I mean, he's very much working on the graphics for a kayaking club right now. So
all right, I'm gonna I am hearing my name upstairs being called. I'm being paged, so I'm gonna wrap us up here pretty soon. And the next steps on Lomo May, Brian, can you take a look at seeing if you can rekindle that contract, or reach out to Latitude and see whether they can do another order of, I would imagine, 50. And John, if you could reach out to Andrew and see if he'd be willing to design a sticker.
he will.
Okay, that's cool. And then we'll talk probably on our next committee call. We'll try to finalize that the sticker thing, but at least maybe Brian, you can stay in touch via email about how we can move the signs forward.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna move us on to this next item, which is just upcoming changes to the Sustainability Committee. So as we know, we are moving to become a standing committee soon. And Brian, what's the timeline on that? When does that officially happen?
So my understanding, Jay wants to bring something forward. He just sent me a list of some of his topics for the upcoming board meeting. The Sustainability Committee topic was on that. I think that's what he's planning to do, is bring the final committee membership and the chair breakdown for the year terms that I spoke of last time in the last meeting. So I think that's going to be on the agenda for this month. I think it will go into effect in April with the new breakdown. But that being said, that's a good point, because I don't know, depending on who the trustee is that's going to chair it, the elections won't have taken place until May, I think, for when they get sworn in and start. So I'll make a note. I'll ask Jay about that tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm seeing him as well.
That's great. That's great, because those are the two questions that I had, is timing when we become a standing committee, and then timing when we would have an idea of who the chair will be and who is going to be assigned, what other compositional changes we might have to the Sustainability Committee. Are there other changes once we become a standing committee? Is there anything that we need to know about, whether that happens in March or April, or rather that when that happens, whether that's April or May? Anything that we need to know about?
I don't think there's any other formal notifications other than just the order in which the committee members are going to make up that rotation for the terms, based on the chair spots that we were kind of going through last time, as far as that rolling term averages for committee assignments. But I don't think there's anything additional on that. I'll bring that up tomorrow with Jay and just confirm for you, and I'll give you an update.
Okay, that's terrific.
I do have one quick one. Do open records laws now apply?
I think they've applied the whole time, frankly. Even if we weren't a assigned committee or standing committee, I think.
Okay.
That's That's just I would assume that is the default.
I would assume that's the case too.
Okay.
How about things that are we've got a Google Drive?
That might need to be changed.
Yeah, that's a great question. I will add that to the list and
Okay.
see, because the finance committee is kind of the same, I think, phenomenon, and I'm sure they've got very similar record
Right.
storage, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think the way we've handled this once or twice in the past is we did have Google Docs, but as long as we bring that document to public light in the meeting forum. So if we take,
Okay.
even if it changes during the time, we show it as a flash, flash it up during one of the meetings, and it's marked in time. I think that's fine. So.
Okay. But maybe not an ongoing drive where we have ongoing collaboration happening.
That's a question I don't know the answer to.
Yeah. Okay.
We did in the past, but we would then bring that up to the meeting as, okay, here's what it looks like in March, and then we made changes. Okay, here's what it looks like in April.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, Brian, all good things for us to know, because we're in some ways things aren't going to change, and in some ways, we just don't we want everything to be above board. So anything that we need to know about what it means to be and how we act as a standing committee is going to be really good for us to know.
Sure.
I'm going to wrap us up. So here's where we are at the end of the meeting in terms of next steps. Kevin has volunteered to do some review of the comprehensive plan, and he's going to try to get a copy of that to do a review to see how we might be able to include some sustainability measures in that, or future iterations of it maybe. I am going to work with Brady from Focus on Energy and try to schedule a time and date for a presentation on a weeknight at the library on Focus on Energy programs. And Steve's going to color code the sustainability plan to give us kind of a quick reference of green, yellow, red, just to help us see how quick, in a quick glance, how we're making progress on implementing the sustainability plan. We're going to add LOMOME and the sustainability plan coding and resiliency plan to our April sustainability committee meeting. And we'll get some updates from Brian about when the timing for changes to the sustainability committee, when that actually kicks in. That's what I've got as next steps. And also John's going to send some information to Brian about Xander Park cleanup.
Already did.
Awesome. Done. See, you're ahead of the game. And you were multitasking during the meeting. John. All right. That's it. That's what I've got for wrap up and next steps. And our next meeting is currently planned for April, second Wednesday of the month, whatever that happens to be, which I'm checking out on the calendar. My calendar says that's April 12th. So we will talk via email between now and then, and probably between now and then become a formal committee, a standing committee. So that's kind of exciting. All right, folks, anything for the good of the group before we adjourn for the night? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Steve will second.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks, Steve. Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Great meeting, great discussion. You guys are an awesome bunch to work with. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for doing
Back
good
at
work.
you, boss.
All right. Thanks,
night,
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Melissa.